So my poem was Hanging Fire by Audre Lorde. A little background on her. She was born in New York and was raised on the stories of her mother, who grew up in the West Indies and would always, tell her stories of her childhood and life there. And she began writing at about the age of 4. Eventually, she would go on to read other people's poetry until finally that didn't spill out her feelings enough for her, and then she started writing her own poetry. She was educated in Catholic schools where she faced racism and just really hard times. And eventually she went to Hunter High School, which is a public school, where she found a group of other poets who were considered outcasts. As far as me and the author, I feel like I really relate to her in terms of I had to transfer schools based on problems I faced at my first high school. I've definitely had a journey as far as, who I am and finding out who I am throughout the years, just like she did. She labels herself like a lesbian, feminist, warrior, mother poet. And, I identify with a lot of those. I am a feminist, and I identify as a warrior, especially now, lesbian. So reading her poetry is just very special to me because I feel like I connect with her on a whole other level. And I feel like a lot of my poetry is similar to hers the more I read hers. So here's Hanging Fire by Audre Lorde. I am 14 and my skin has betrayed me. The boy I cannot live without still sucks his thumb in secret. How come my knees are always so ashy? What if I die before morning and Mama's in the bedroom with the door closed? I have to learn how to dance in time for the next party. My room is too small for me. Suppose I die before graduation. They will sing sad melodies, but finally tell the truth about me. There is nothing I want to do and too much that has to be done, and Mama's in the bedroom with the door closed. Nobody even stops to think about my side of it. I should have been on math team. My marks are better than his. Why do I have to be the one wearing braces? I have nothing to wear tomorrow. Will I live long enough to grow up and Mama's in the bedroom with the door closed? So the significance of this poem, it was written in the 1970s and featured in her 1978 collection, The Black Unicorn. And in the 1970s, even still, with all the progress that had been made as far as like women and the sexual revolution, I think is what that was called. A lot of things were more open, but it still was weird to give an adolescent, let alone a female adolescent, a voice and be the speaker of a poem during this time. But obviously, Audre was a feminist, and I guess that was very, very important to her. In terms of a bunch of the lines, for example, I am 14 and my skin has betrayed me. I feel like, since she did have to face racism, it could be for her, the color of her skin has betrayed her because she's having to face these problems in the world because of the color of her skin. And how her knees are always so ashy, that could also be related to the color of her skin. Mama's in the bedroom with the door closed is repeated throughout the poem. It's just about at the end of every couple verses. I feel like, when we're all 14, we all feel like we're alone and there's no one that has these problems that we're facing and no one understands me, and my parents, I can't talk to them because they just don't get it. I know I went through that, and I know that most people went through that, so I feel like Mama's in the bedroom with the door closed is, just that feeling of isolation as a 14-year-old and growing up with all these, you have the insecurity. She talks about having braces, and she talks about her boyfriend and having all these problems, and just, you feel so alone at that age, but you grow up to ultimately, learn that you know, everyone goes through it. Everyone has those awkward moments. My room is too small for me. It could be, you know, at 14 you feel like you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof, and you know, your room being too small for you, you feel like it's not big enough for everything that you are. Suppose I die before graduation, they will sing sad melodies but finally tell the truth about me. That line really hits hard for me. There were two girls in my school who died, and one of them was a senior. And as far as like people singing sad melodies but finally telling the truth about them, I feel like Audre is saying that yes, people are going to mourn if this does happen, but you know, people will actually be honest about how they feel about her, you know, because if you die before graduation, it's like you can't really defend yourself, and that could be that feeling of just feeling defenseless ultimately. I should have been on the math team. My marks were better than his. Why do I have to be the one wearing braces? I have nothing to wear tomorrow. I feel like these are all struggles that, you know, we all face as a 14-year-old or just any, you know, teenage age, really. Um, you know, just the feeling of not being good enough, and, you know, I wasn't good enough, so I didn't go out for the math team, and, you know, all these missed opportunities that we have that, you know, could have altered our lives that we didn't take, and, you know, reflecting back on those. And then the poem ends with, and mama's in the bedroom with the door closed. And that goes back to that feeling of isolation. So ultimately, the poem, it's significant because it gives that voice to teenagers, and it just lets us know that we're not alone. And, you know, everyone goes through these problems, and we know that as we get older, but as a 14-year-old, you don't. And so this poem can, you know, let us older people know, you know, you're right. You know, everyone does have these problems, and if a 14-year-old is reading this, or a pre-14-year-old, it's to just, you know, be comforting and letting them know that they're not alone. And just the significance of the poem is you're not alone. And I think Audre wanted young girls to know that because, you know, as a feminist, it's, I don't know. Okay, so that's the significance of Hanging Fire by Audre Lorde. I have fallen in love with this poem completely, and I hope that you do too. And I'm really excited to finish this project on it. All right, bye guys.